Hi there, and welcome back to part 10 of Making Pong in Unity 2D. Today we'll conclude this series by having a look at some more things Unity has to offer. Then we'll have a look at how we could develop our simple Pong game into multiple directions, and then I'll also give some advice on where you could go on your game development journey. If this is the first video of this series that you're watching, I highly suggest going back and starting at part 1 because they are building on top of each other. We have a playlist with all the parts and the link is in the description. And you can also go to GitHub, link also in the description, and check out the state of this project after each video. There are tags on GitHub and you can check this out. But you can also watch this video on its own because we're not going to develop that much, it's more talking today. So first, let's jump into Unity and check out what Unity still has to offer for us. And I mainly want to talk about two things here, and that is the packages from the package manager. We already had a look at those in the post-processing video, and the Unity asset store. So let's start with the packages. So packages offer additional functionality that we can use in our game, and we get there by clicking Window and going to the package manager. And here we see all the packages we already got in our project. Since we created this project as a 2D project, we already got quite a few 2D packages in there. There's also Text Mesh Pro that we're using, and we already added the post-processing package. But there is so much more. Just click up here and go to Unity Registry. And now, if you scroll down, you can see there is so much available to us. And there's also this quite new feature that you can install, so-called features. These are like bundles of packages, and you can put multiple packages into your project all at once. I just want to give you a few examples of packages that I like the most. The first one is Cinemachine, and I use this one in almost all of my projects. You can click on View Documentation and you'll be taken straight to the documentation page and read about the packages there. So Cinemachine is all about cameras, and it easily lets you create different cameras that you can switch between. It easily lets you create follow cameras for all kinds of games. You can create cool cutscenes with this. So this is probably my most used package besides the standard ones. Next up is the input system package, and this is like a better replacement for the legacy, you could call it, input system in Unity that we're still using, and that is enabled by default. It allows for much better and cleaner handling of different input actions, multiple input devices like gamepads, keyboards and mouse, and also multiple players playing the game. Lastly, for this video, we'll have a look at 2D sprite shape. And since this already came with our 2D game, let's check it out real quick. It's already installed, so we can just right-click and create a new 2D object. And here we have sprite shape, and we can have open or closed shapes. And then we have this sprite shape right here, and we can edit it. And this allows for some really organic looking shapes of sprites, not as boxy as they often come. And you can also create physics colliders for these, so you can, for example, use these in platform games, or you can use these as, for example, obstacles in a top-down game. So these are a few examples of the packages I mostly use in my projects, but there are way more that I commonly use. But there are so many packages available, and I encourage you to go exploring and just click through all of these at least once and read the description and maybe view the documentation so you know what you have available to you. It's always good to know the tools in your belt. Next up is something similar but also different. It's the Unity Asset Store, and we can access it with Window and asset store, and it's gonna open up in Unity like this, which I think is a bit awkward to navigate. So I'm gonna close this again, and I like using it in the browser way more. So just go to assetstore.unity.com. So the asset store is a place where you can get lots and lots of awesome plugins for certain functionalities in your game, and also a lot of cool assets like graphics and audio and sprites, textures, models, animations, all sorts of stuff. And they come both in free and paid variants. So most of them are paid, but some of them are free, and some of the free ones are really great. I'm going to show you in a second some examples. And you can add these to your Unity account. So once you purchase them, they belong to your Unity account, and you can use them in as many projects as you want. Same goes for the free ones. There you just click a button and they get added to your account. And once they are added to your account, you can access them through Unity, through the package manager. So go back into Unity, into the package manager, once you added a free one. Like, this is what you're gonna do later probably. I'm just gonna show you mine. And you can go here to My Assets. And this is gonna list all of the Unity Asset Store assets that you got to your account. And I got a lot of them, and here you can also download them. So you first have to download them, and once you downloaded them, you can then import them into your project. So very often it is way more efficient to use an asset that has already been built by someone else for something complex in your game than to build it on your own. You maybe have to pay like 20 or 30 bucks for it, but you save like weeks of time. On the other hand, you also, if you build it your own, you get a great learning experience. So there's a trade-off here where you have to decide on a case-by-case basis. There's another potential downside to using assets from the asset store, and it's a downside that you got with your own code as well. There might be bugs, and most often these are frequently updated, especially the top selling ones. They mostly have great support, and you can report bugs there and they're gonna fix them quickly. But there might be plugins on here that don't get updated so frequently or have been abandoned overall. You can check this out by going to the plugin and checking the latest release date. So if this is like more than 1 or 2 years in the past, then be critical and think twice about using this in your project, because it might break, especially in newer versions of Unity. And it's not easy to fix these bugs on your own. Sometimes the code is not even available to you, and even if it is, you have to get into the code of a probably giant plugin that someone else wrote. That's a huge task. So yeah, be mindful of this. This of course doesn't go like for visual and audio assets, because they are just gonna work, but on the code and logic side, be mindful. Let's have a quick look at how you can navigate this page. And here on the front page, you mostly have some sales, some categories, some different genres of games, staff picks, and you can also, for example, check out these popular assets and also the top 3 ones. You can see more of these, so I encourage you to especially browse this category at first, and it's fascinating what you can get here. And you can, for example, also search for assets. So let's search maybe for ASD and let's see what comes up here. Actually, something comes up. And then here you can also adjust your search parameters, like supported Unity versions, the pricing, and so on and so forth. So next up, let's have a look at some examples of some of my favorites from the asset store. So the first one is DoTween, and I use this one in almost all of my projects, and it's just great. And it comes in a free and in a paid version, but the paid version is not that pricey. Also, the free version is really powerful already. And this one is all about animations. So you can easily create cool animations with this, chain them together, set their smoothing. You can do this in the editor as well as in code. So it's a really powerful, wonderful tool that I highly recommend. Next up is Rewired, and this is a plugin for handling input. We already had a little look at the new input system in Unity, and it's a bit similar to that. But before this new Unity input system came along, this was a must-have, and I think it still is because it's even more powerful and developed than Unity's own solution. But you can also go with the free one with the Unity input system, so that's your choice. It's around $45. I think it's worth it. And lastly, and more as an example of all the amazing visual packages you can get out there, all the amazing asset packs, is a low poly simple nature pack. So this just comes with a few trees and rocks and grass, and it's for free. So that's cool, and you can start building a low poly game with this, or it's great for prototyping, and there are a ton of assets like this out there. So these are just, I'm searching for low poly nature and just for free assets, and there's already so many packs available, and there's so much more like skies and effects like water shaders, everything you can imagine. Just search for it and I think you'll be surprised. Next, let's think about the game we made. It's a pretty generic Pong clone, even though we already added some flavor with the post-processing, the sprites we used, the music we made, and the different game modes. But there are indeed endless possibilities of where we could take this game from here and make it into something much more interesting and unique, both in terms of gameplay and visuals and even more. To start out, let's go to File, Save As, and we're gonna make a copy of our scene, and let's call it Playground. And we can use this new scene to just test some things out without affecting our game that we already have. For example, let's duplicate our ball and have like 2 balls in the game and move this one down a bit, and let's see what happens now. So if we start the game and both the balls are moving, and it's immediately much more frantic. But notice that whenever one ball hits a score zone, both balls get reset. So this is something that we would have to adjust. We're not going to do this in this video. I encourage you to try it out. And yeah, also you see some bugs, like when one player wins, the other ball is still going on and it resets and stuff like that. So you got to do some adjustments, but this is just one way of making this much more interesting already. Next, let's try adding an obstacle to our level. So go to level, right click to the object, sprites and square, and we're going to call this one obstacle. And let's make it a bit higher, maybe like this, and maybe a bit narrower, like this. Okay, this is pretty damn high. Let's make it like this and move it up here. So this is an obstacle, but it doesn't do physics yet. So we still gotta add a box collider to D for this to actually work. And let's check out how this affects the gameplay. So okay, we haven't had a collision yet. I'm gonna try. Okay. All right, it's gonna take 1 second, and it's colliding with this obstacle, and this makes, of course, the ball also faster when it hits the pedal. So yeah, this is one way of adding some more interesting gameplay to the game, and you can, of course, have like multiple obstacles everywhere in your level and different levels with different obstacles, for example. Another idea is to add more pedals to the game. So let's select both our pedals, Control D to duplicate them, and then we can move these, for example, in a little bit, like this at -4 and this at 4. And let's make them a bit slower. So let's have move speed just 4, and let's make them less high, so 0.5 on the scale. And let's see how this plays out. So now the left player is still controlling both left pedals because we just duplicated this. You could also, for example, have like the left player control this little right pedal and go crazy with stuff like this. But yeah, let's just see how this works. Okay, yeah, we still got the obstacle in there. And you see there's some pretty interesting emergent gameplay that if I hit the ball with my pedal in the back, it can bounce off the pedal in the front and just wreck me. So this is some really easy way to add much more interest to the game. Another more visual thing is using, for example, 3D assets instead of our flat sprites. And for example, we could use this on the pedal, but be careful here. If we do this on the prefab, it's also gonna affect our other scene. So let's stay inside this scene and select both pedals, right-click, and add a 3D object capsule. And notice if you selected both of them, it's gonna add this capsule to both. Now, we don't need the sprites anymore, so select both of them. And if you just hit delete, this is not gonna work because they are part of this prefab and we would have to edit the prefab. We could now unpack these prefabs. If you remember, right-click, prefab, and unpack and remove the prefab connection, or we could leave the prefab connection there and just disable the sprite renderer here, and this works because this is something that we change in the scene. And what we also can do and should do is remove these colliders from the capsules because we are using 2D physics here and not 3D physics, so let's remove this. And since these capsules are not part of the prefab yet, we can just remove components and we can remove these capsules again. That is not a problem. In fact, we can freely mix, for example, 2D physics with 3D visuals like we do here, or the other way around, 3D physics with 2D visuals, or have 2D physics and both 3D and 2D visuals, like we also have here, like the walls are still 2D physics and also 2D visuals. So there you can mix and match a lot, but don't mix 2D physics with 3D physics. Decide if you want to have 2D physics or 3D physics. Now our new capsules, they look very dark. That's because they are not using sprites anymore, but a material that requires some light. So we can add lights to our scene by right-clicking and light and a directional light, for example. And now we can see it doesn't look so great, yes? But they are lit and you can already see maybe some 3D stuff. To make this even more 3D, we can change our main camera from orthographic projection to perspective. And now maybe we can have like this one a little bit closer. Okay, and now it already looks much more 3D. Let's just check this out real quick, how it looks in the game. Yeah, okay, of course we didn't adjust like the size of the capsules, but like this is a totally different visual style already. It still looks a bit bad, but I hope you can see that you can go this route of mixing stuff, different visuals, or just have a 2D game with 3D visuals. That's the takeaway here. And all these changes that we just tested out are just the tip of the iceberg. You could add different levels to the game. You could add a story to the game, for example, about a friendship, and each time one of the friends hits the ball, there's a text line displayed, or each time one of the players gets a point, it goes into a different direction, something like that. You could add some progression systems. For example, each time you score, then you get some experience, and maybe your movement speed increases or the size of your paddle increases, and you can go very complex with a lot of stats on that. For example, you could also have like an RPG that uses our Pong game as its combat mechanic. Why not? Think of Undertale. It did something similar. Has a great RPG but has a combat mechanic from a wholly different genre. In general, this is a really awesome way to get creative and gather new ideas. Think ABC, but XYZ. For example, it's Pong, but it tells a story of friendship. It's Pong, but underwater. It's Pong, but it's also an RPG. It's Pong, but you have to dodge the ball, and so on. And if you still need more ideas, there are even game idea generators out there. So you just Google for game idea generator and you find some cool websites where you can just generate game ideas and think about them or prototype them. Here's another one. We can just let it give us a game idea, and yeah, there are some crazy combinations that really get you thinking. Of course, you don't need these game idea generators to come up with ideas, but I think they're a neat little thing to have in your tool belt. So that's it for our game, but where can you go from here on your game development journey? I'd advise you to try out and learn as much as you possibly can. Practice makes you a lot better, and trying out different things makes you more versatile. But I highly recommend to start very, very small. Don't try to make your dream game right now, except, of course, if your dream game is Pong, then go for it. But otherwise, make a lot of small games and learn, especially from your mistakes. I, for one, made more than 40 smaller games before starting my solo indie dev career and starting work on my bigger game recollection. Most of these smaller games came to life in so-called game jams, which are game development challenges where you have to create a relatively complete game for a given theme in a short amount of time. For example, within 48 hours or a week. And I highly recommend taking part in a game jam as your next step, as it is a great and intense learning experience. In fact, one of the biggest global game jam events is coming right up this weekend, the Ludum Dare. So if you watch this video in time, think about participating and put your newly found skills to the test. Don't worry though if you miss it, the next one is already going to be in January, and it's usually 2 or 3 times a year. And also, it doesn't have to be Ludum Dare. There are a ton of game jams running all the time, bigger and smaller ones. So just go to itch.io/jams, and here you can have this huge calendar of game jams and just pick one and try it out. Apart from that, there's a ton of learning resources out there. Keep your eyes open for humble bundles. There are sometimes some really cool and cheap bundles where you can get lots of learning resources bundled up together. For example, right now there's one on Unreal Engine 5. Okay, that's probably a bit awkward to mention in a Unity course, but they also got like bundles on Unity Asset Store assets right now. And sometimes they also have learning bundles for Unity, especially from Game Dev TV. This is a pretty cool platform, and they're making some really good complete courses. I haven't checked out their Unity courses so far, just their Blender courses, but they were really good, so I imagine their Unity courses are probably also great. So have a look at that if you have some money to spend on rather complete courses. And of course, YouTube also offers a whole lot of channels about game development where you can learn new stuff and get inspired. And I just want to quickly mention a few of them. There are many more great ones out there. So the first one, and probably the most well-known one, is Game Maker's Toolkit. And this one is mostly about game design and analyzing games concerning their game design. But he also has a series about developing his own game. Next up is Jonas Tarola, and he's making very entertaining videos about his game dev journey. And yeah, Adam C. Eunice, if you want to dive into pixel art, he is a master and makes great videos. So check this out. And then there are a few that are more about development in Unity, so something more specific, and yeah, coding also. So there's Code Monkey, Game Dev Guide, and Tarot Dev that I can recommend. Like I said, there are many more, and I've left out a lot of them here, but you can find them on your own. But this is already a whole lot of input. And of course, there's also my channel. Which smoothly leads me to my next point. I usually don't advertise myself too much in my videos, just with a little end card. But if there's ever a time to do it a bit more extensively, it's probably at the end of this long series, right? So if you enjoyed these videos, I'd highly appreciate your support, and there's a few ways you can do this. The first one is obviously this channel right here. So you can check out my videos, hit that like button below them, subscribe to the channel, and of course also ring the notification bell. And if you set it to all, you'll never miss a video of me again. And that would be great now. I mostly do tutorials like this one, like we have this beginner tutorial series, and I also do let's plays and also ratings and analyzing of game jam games, and I also do devlogs and videos of my game recollection. Speaking of which, my game recollection is on Steam. It is planned to come out in early 2023. You can add it to your wishlist and follow the game here, and it also has a public demo available for you to play and try out. Then of course there's the social media platforms, and you can follow me there for updates on new videos and the progress on recollection. So I'm on Twitter and TikTok and Instagram and also Facebook. You can find the links to all of these down in the description. Last but definitely not least is word of mouth. It's one of the most powerful things out there. So if you know anyone who wants to learn game dev or might be interested in the content I create, I'd highly appreciate it if you could send them in this direction. These could be real-life friends, family or colleagues, or online communities like on Reddit or Discord. So, thanks a lot for listening to this little bit of self-advertisement, and thank you even more for following this series all the way towards the very end, which is now. You made it and you completed the first steps on your game development journey. That's really awesome. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did creating it. I will certainly make another longer form series someday in the future, but for the next couple of months I want to concentrate on creating some smaller tutorials and on finishing my game. Also, the next Let's Play Ludum Dare stream series is coming right up. We don't just play the games there, which is of course what we also do. We also rate them and analyze them, see what works and what doesn't, how we could improve them and more. It's a great learning experience too, and I would love to welcome some of you on the stream there. So, that's it now for real. If you have any questions, thoughts and feedback, let me know down in the comments. And I hope to see you here again soon. I wish you a great rest of the day, and bye.